Why don't we stand for the pledge? Bob, won't you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Do we have any public comments? Seeing, okay. Go ahead. You might be able
I
to.
wasn't sure if you were calling on the Berkovich case public comments.
Well, that's a good question, because I looked at the, maybe I should ask our counsel. We do have under new business, adopt finalized recommendation, special magistrate petition. Would that include the Berkovich case? It doesn't mention that.
It does.
Okay. So we'll wait till we get to new business then, right? That would be the proper course?
Yes, that would be better.
Okay. And why don't we let's do the board reports at the end of the meeting. That's typically what we do. I think that makes better sense. Okay. So I guess we'd go to new business then.
Yes, sir.
All right, now, getting your steps in for today. Yeah. E1, adopt and finalize recommendation of special magistrate for petition number 2024-00166 to the Value Adjustment Board. That is the Berkovich case. So, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeffrey Smith with Smith & Associates on behalf of the taxpayer, Alex Berkovich. Last time we were here, we spent a lot of time on the board's authority, and I wanted to be a little more direct and succinct on that. So I'm going to hand the board, the first document is just a highlight from the second document, which is the rules as published of the Value Adjustment Board. And as you can see, the authority of the board, I forgot to keep one so I could read from it, but the authority of the board is and allows the board to make a decision different from the decision of the special magistrate. And we seem to kind of chase our tails on that last time, and this time I just wanted to be clear that is clearly within this board's authority to make a decision if they find that there has been an incorrect legal conclusion or if there was evidence that was not considered. And so if you look at the actual rules, it's highlighted. I think it's the second page from the back. And it makes very clear that that last sentence in the highlighted paragraph will tell you the Value Adjustment Board is the final decision maker. And with that background, what we would show to as to the revised special magistrate report, that there remains a legal error and evidence that was not properly considered. The legal error is that the special magistrate finds that the presumption of correctness that comes with the property appraiser's initial evaluation was found not to meet the standards in 193-011 because it didn't follow proper appraisal methods and was not entitled to a presumption of correctness. But after finding that it didn't meet those standards, did not meet the standards in 193-011, the special magistrate ultimately relies on it anyway and says, even though it doesn't meet presumption of correctness, it doesn't meet the standards in 193-011, he goes on and says, I'm going to use it anyway. And his basic rationale is that, well, the burden of proof was on the taxpayer, and the taxpayer didn't present any evidence of that. He does recite the actual evidence that was presented, but then essentially ignores that evidence, and I just want to summarize what that evidence showed. This is not new evidence. This is evidence in the record, which I'll hand to you. But the valuation method that was presented by the taxpayer used a per square foot value of 4 parcels that were in the immediate vicinity. You'll find a spreadsheet on that. It's on page 34 of the evidence packet, which I'll hand to you. But the value using the average per square foot cost of the just value for 4 properties in the immediate vicinity came to $460 a square foot. That was applied to the square footage of the subject parcel, and that was then added the cost of the improvements on the property, and then the cost to cure by adding the fill, and the resulting value of $1,388,256. And that is in the record, and I'll hand you each a copy. And this is material that is not new material, but material that was presented. And if you look at the second page, it includes the opinion of value. That land value was using that $4.60 square foot from the 4 adjacent properties, or properties in the vicinity. The main structure was valued at $637,370. The improvements, the cost to cure, and there is the calculation. So the bottom line is evidence was presented by the taxpayer. There was not a presumption of correctness for the methodology that the property appraiser's office used, which resulted then in the taxpayer coming forward with a methodology. So what is the board to do? And I would urge the board, it's in section 194.301 of the Florida statutes, that says if the party challenging the assessment satisfies the requirements of A, which is to bring forward the a methodology of showing value when there's not a presumed correctness, if the taxpayer does that, the presumption is overcome, and the Value Adjustment Board or the court shall establish the assessment if there's competent, substantial evidence of value in the record which cumulatively meets the criterion 193.011. And that's exactly what we're asking this board to do. So I've presented you with the portions of the record that we would rely upon for this board to make its decision. I've identified for you the legal error in the special magistrate's opinion, recommendation, and I would urge you to adopt the value as put forth by the taxpayer. Thank you. Any
Okay,
questions?
do we have any questions? Any questions?
I do.
Yes.
And this may be to our counsel. I don't know that we are actually the final decision makers here. What is the next step for the property appraiser if she doesn't feel like whatever the board comes up with is what she wants?
It would be up to the property appraiser to either appeal to the circuit court or do nothing.
Okay. So we may not be the final decision maker in this.
It would be the conclusion of the VAB process, but
Right.
no, it might not be the end of the overall process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, board members.
Okay, thank you. So, discussion. I'll kick it off here because I did go back and listen to the discussion. It's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of deliberation, I thought, which is good. Here's my opinion on this matter. I think that that the property owner has proven by preponderance of evidence that the assessed value does not represent the just value of the property. They testified and provided evidence that that in late January 2021, FEMA changed flood zone maps. All of subject property then was included, and all structures was included in the AE flood zone, and they provided the FEMA flood map as evidence to prove that. They did provide cost to cure. That approximate cost to cure is $527,000, but that wasn't just the thing that I looked at in terms of the valuation. The property, having been reclassified into a floodplain in and of itself, was enough to offer some relief for this particular property owner. Also, they testified that there was, and you can see on aerials that there was development done in proximity to this property. They did not use proper drainage. The subject property now must deal with runoff from that property, which exacerbated the flood problem. Also, when you look at the surrounding values of the property just north of it is assessed substantially less, and it, to me, is a more desirable. It is a smaller lot, but it's barely over $1 million in value. Smaller lot, yes, but a more desirable one. This lot, by testimony given at the presentation, the shoreline floods often. The trees block the view from the house. It is an older house that was built not at the date that was originally provided. And the counsel for the landowner is correct. The special master, and to that master's credit, acknowledged that the property appraiser did not meet the burden of proof because of mistake. And so I think they were taking an objective look at that. But here's one of the things that troubles me in this case, and I think it affects countywide. We seem to be penalizing landowners that buy low land, flooding land, and choose not to fill it. This land floods, and I think there was an overemphasis on square footage, not on the overall attractiveness of the lot. Yes, it's bigger, and if you had a square footage application of value, you could have a smaller lot that was more attractive and apply the same square footage formula and come up with an exorbitantly high number. I don't think that's a fair way of doing it. I think you should look at the total lot. And I think that the applicant in the presentation gave a lot of good information, and there was more about the heartache and the difficulty and the way it was developed and the previous landowner, the reclassification of the flood zone, but there was no relief. It was strictly a square footage figure that was applied to this particular lot, and you have an assessment now that's, well, I think it's over twice as high as the lot right next to it. And I would argue the lot right next to it probably is a more modern house. It's better view. It drains better. It's a much more valuable lot, but yet half of the assessments. So that doesn't meet the fair and just valuation of the property or equal application. So I recommend that we uphold, that we don't uphold the recommendation from the property appraiser. Whether we go with the value established from the cost of cure, I would probably take a different approach. I would, and this is just me, I don't know if it's, I would basically recommend not changing the value, keeping the value that it was set at for the previous fiscal year, assuming the presumption of correctness that the property appraiser got it right the year before, but then when they changed it and upped it up, they got it wrong. And that would be the amount I would recommend.
Mr. Chair, can I ask for a
If I can do that, I
process?
don't know what my limitations are,
10
but
seconds and give it to you.
So is the question whether the board could adopt the 2023
right.
adjust
right.
value? I'm not sure if there's evidence of that in the record. I'm not saying I honestly don't know if there's evidence of that.
Well, the evidence is that the property appraiser came up with that value, deemed it to be fair and just, and there was not ample evidence to come in and reassess the property at a higher value. By the way, the cost to cure value and the value that was established are very, very close. I mean, we could go with the cost to cure value, but that would be the evidence that the appraiser did it just 365 days earlier and used ample evidence. And by the way, I don't think they readjusted the property next to them either. I don't think that was reevaluated. I don't understand why they would have reevaluated this property and not reevaluate the property next to it, if indeed if there was an inflationary impact. But
There can be, well, properties are reassessed when there's a transfer of title. I mean, that's the primary reason. So if the neighboring property wasn't transferred at the same time, it would not have been necessarily reassessed.
now, are you sure about that? Because I understand that properties are supposed to be assessed based on what is fair and just assessment. It's not a matter of whether they've been transferred in. Now, sometimes they may review that, but that should not be the grounds of assessing property, whether it was transferred or not. The property appraiser has the duty to reevaluate the tax roll and ensure that all properties are assessed at fair and just valuation. Anyway, I'd like to get more information on that because I don't think that's a criteria that should be considered and coming up with just valuation.
I'm happy to provide a citation.
Okay, that'd be good. Yeah, I'd like to see that.
So one of the things I didn't know about the process that you guys from the county side, but normally we do a move to approve the item, go to second, and then we open discussion, and then any additional amendments or changes we would make. I didn't know if that's the proper process here, if we need to make a motion and open up discussion, or if we're okay to just open it up like this. It's totally, either way, it doesn't matter to me.
I think we can just open up
Okay.
discussion or questions.
All right, I think Commissioner Atkins.
Yeah, I'm obviously learning, and what I'm learning is that Florida statutes provides that the party who's initiating the challenge has the burden of proving. And our special magistrate and our attorney, who know these things far better than I do, are saying that that wasn't done. So opening our taxpayers up to what could cost them in an appeal by the property appraiser, I'm taking that seriously.
On that point, I read the report from the special magistrate, and the special magistrate acknowledged that the property appraiser did not meet the burden of proof.
Because of
A mistake, yeah.
the mistake that was made, but even if they corrected for that mistake, it wouldn't have changed.
According
their-
to his opinion, yeah.
Exactly, and that's the thing, is if
Yeah.
we go to an appeal, or not we, but if the property appraiser does, then what we have are our legal counsel and the person we gave the responsibility to make the decision saying one thing. Like I said, it just makes me nervous that we'll be putting the taxpayers up for that.
Commissioner,
Yes.
so I did look it up on my phone, and the statute is 193, 150, excuse me, that's not it. The statute provides that a change in ownership triggers a reassessment to just value. Of course, the property appraiser reassesses each year on January 1st, but the just value is only changed when there's a reassessment. So that doesn't necessarily occur each year.
Okay.
If I can say something, philosophically, from a perspective of what you just laid out, Commissioner Altman, I completely see where you're going, see the process and see it. I've got a problem with when you see a clear direction and sound argument like you presented being overrun by the fact that we might have a situation where the property appraiser may appeal it. I believe that our government is set up to protect the citizens, and if there's a situation like this, I would love to see it play out, just to see how it goes. I've had, and Commissioner Atkinson, I called some of my former VAB members on the council, and I asked them, and they said it's the most frustrating thing in the world because we feel like we can't make a change at all. And when that happens, I don't believe that that's supposed to be the process, just my gut. And I believe that if that's the process that it has to go down, then it does. But I really believe that there's a sound argument here. I believe that we should be protecting the taxpayers, even if it does mean that we have to go to court to present our position against the property appraiser for that, or that our decision ultimately ends up going to court and then the opposing counsel has to defend it. But I believe that this is a good, sound argument. I do. I went back and forth with it all weekend long about exactly what you're thinking, Ms. Atkinson. And I weighed towards the side of this is something that I believe, after years of being on the VAB, that is an opportunity for us to learn about the process, get through it, and then also justify supporting a taxpayer. And that's where I'm at. That's where I feel. And Commissioner Altman, I think you did a great job on laying out exactly a good argument. I had about half of that, and I was willing to get there. But I did want to say good job, and I see, Ms. Atkinson, your side of the argument also. So that's all I was going to say. Thank you.
I might add, too, this is a bigger picture than just this particular process, this particular property. I think there's a very dangerous precedent that could be established with this appraisal as is. By taking a square footage assessment and equally apply it across the board, endangers us of overtaxing many properties that are in the floodplain. So we have a property clearly has been reassigned. It's in the floodplain. There's testimony toward flooding issues and problems, but yet taking the same square footage value of properties that are not flooding and applying it to a flooding property. Think about the impacts that would have on the St. Johns Basin and other areas of the lagoon where you have landowners who have property that floods, but yet they're going to be forced to pay taxes at the same rate as properties that do not flood. So you're pushing people into not being able to have their property because of the taxes. You're also pushing people to maybe prematurely or improperly attempt to develop and fill that. They may not want to fill that land. They may appreciate that it's productive wetlands. It's providing a public benefit in terms of water quality and wildlife and flood storage. But yet we're saying, well, that's too bad. Even though you're providing flood storage, even though you're protecting the wetlands, we're going to tax you at the same level as the guy that just filled their property and all the other associated negative impacts. I think that's just wrong, and I think that this sets a very dangerous precedent, and I think we should give this landowner relief for the public good. And I agree with our school board member, Susan. I think it's important enough that this is, if they choose to appeal, it should be played out because it's a very important decision. Okay, I don't think there's any other discussion. Is there a motion?
So we have to move to approve it, right? And then we have to...
I think we'll go to our council and see what would be the proper, if we were to move to...
We have to move to approve the item.
I think if I understand what's desired, it's to direct the special magistrate to revise the recommendation to change the value to the 2023 assessment?
I don't know. I mean, it could either be the 2023 assessment or the cost to cure, the cost of bringing this property up to the level of the commensurate properties that are filled. I don't know what would be the better approach or what would be more legally sound, but both numbers are really close to the same. I don't know.
Can you tell me what the numbers are, just so I have it fresh in my head?
So let me see. I don't know if I have those right handy. What's the corrected number based on the cost to cure?
The number, and I'm sure council will correct me if I'm wrong, that they're seeking is $1,388,256. And that accounts for the approximately $500,000 in costs to cure.
Which is a higher number, I think, than the previous year's assessment. So I think we could go with that number.
If the legal side of what they're trying to make an argument.
Yeah.
Might be stronger to go to cost of cure.
I happen to feel they deserve more relief, but I think that's a reasonable and fair and just request. So let's go to what?
If I can ask one question on the tail end of that, does this set precedents that other landowners may come forward and ask us for relief based upon what we're doing? And if so, would cost of cure be the stronger argument, or would going back to the 2023? I know this is kind of a hypothetical curveball coming at 90 miles an hour, so.
It's not a legally binding precedent in this, like an appellate opinion would be.
Okay.
The VAB doesn't have that sort of capacity.
Okay.
But I would say that the board should always be consistent. So internally, the board's decisions should be as consistent as possible. So if there were to be another case on all fours, in my opinion, the board should be consistent within the law as much as you can.
So Commissioner Altman, if you can do a little bit of an explanation between the difference between the cost of cure and going back
Yeah.
and seeing what makes sense to you, since you have more experience in this area.
Yeah, my gut feeling, since we have evidence that's been presented to us in public at a hearing, that this is what it would cost to bring this property up to the level of the other properties.
Got it.
That's an objective, measurable,
Okay.
quantifiable number.
Okay.
It happens to be pretty close to the previous year's assessment, and acting on reliance on the last year's assessment, assuming the appraiser did it right. And I think that's the better number.
Okay. So cost of cure.
Yes.
Okay.
That's,
Okay.
So if I understand the requested motion, it would be a motion to direct to direct me, counsel, to confer with the special magistrate to revise the recommended decision to reflect a new just value of the 1.388 million.
Is that the required process that we have to go through, or
It
can
is.
we just say, this is what it's going to be and move forward?
The rule does specify that has to be the process.
Okay.
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 I wish it were simpler.
Well, I have to say, I was reading the documentation, and it sounds like we did exactly what we were supposed to do based on what was, so what did they say, a blind hog finds an acorn every once in a while. So I guess that was with the guidance of our council that we did what we needed to do, but I think that's an appropriate approach. If that's, yeah.
Yes, the motion I laid out is compliant. I would say.
So,
We normally would have to open up the item,
Have to
vote
second.
to second it, then amend it because it asks for the approval, right? So we would have to then vote on another motion to amend it, approve it, then come back to the original and vote it.
If the board approved that motion,
Yeah.
we'd have to have another meeting to approve the then revised
Yep.
recommendation.
Yeah. So I'll make the motion, move to approve the original recommendation that's on the agenda. So we can open it up for discussion. So if I can get a second to that.
Second.
Okay. And then, Mr. Altman, if you would like to make your amended motion to go with the cost of cure, and then we can open up that, past that, and then we go. That's how it works, right, Mr. Counsel?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you'll open up your motion.
so my motion would be to recommend an appraised value at the amount that would be reflected with the cost of cure, which is
Approximately 1.388 million.
1.388 million approximately, based on the evidence that was provided to us to cure the deficiencies in the.
And I'll
Yeah,
second that
lot.
motion. And then, do we have any other discussion?
That's up to the board.
Okay.
Any discussion, debate on the matter? All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying yay.
Yay.
Opposed, nay.
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 Now we go back to the original motion. It's amended.
Passes 3-1 with Commissioner Atkinson voting against.
Yep.
Now we're back to, you're helping guide me here. I'm
It's just-
I'm learning.
On the school board, we get these really
Yeah.
tight votes and everything else, so I know it. And then now we're back to the original motion as amended to move forward with the recommendation to send it back to the special magistrate, amended to make the changes. Correct, counsel?
Yes, sir.
And that's a motion. Is there a
Yep.
second to the motion?
Yeah, it's already been seconded, so we'll just call the question.
Was there a second? Who seconded it?
We-
Okay.
Yeah.
Board Member Springer seconds it. Any discussion, debate? Call for question. All in favor signify by saying yay.
Yay.
Nay?
Nay.
Nay, there's one negative. Commissioner Atkinson votes in the negative. It passes 3-1. Okay. I think we're complete.
There is one more item on the agenda.
Okay.
Packs
And
the
I
rest of the
I
tax.
we have
believe we
reports.
can take part of it. Can we approve the tangible personal property certificate, since we're done with those ones? We can. I'm just adhering to the agenda.
Now, I would like to say, since we were able to move quickly, we have to have these done by June 1st, right? Is that
Yes.
the window that we need to be in by?
Yes.
So if we can do the special magistrate at the same speed, we might want to look at our calendars. You know what I mean?
Yeah, having a meeting next week would be good, if possible. I am available on the 12th Monday, for what it's worth.
I can also make Monday work.
The 12th?
At noon? Yeah.
He said
We do
noon?
After lunch, that would be helpful for me.
I can do
Maybe,
one.
It's fine with me.
I have a 10:30.
1
Like
PM?
1:30?
The 12th? 1:30, yeah?
1:30?
Yeah, I can move
1:30
stuff
work
around.
for-
1:30, the 12th?
Works for me.
It's good?
Can do that.
All right. Okay. So our next meeting will be May 12th at 1:30. Okay.
Okay, board reports.
Okay. Now let's go to Value Adjustment Board reports. I'll go by the chronological order, starting with the chair. I always like the chair to go last. I might change that
That's
next
how we
time.
do it, yeah.
How you want.
All right, I'm going to go last. Go ahead.
I have no board report.
No board report. Okay, Matt? you
I
have a
just had a couple of things. We talked about, what I'd like to do is all of us to have a discussion at the next, to establish, we just avoided the possibility of having a tie. I would like to try to work something into the policy that says how that would work out. The easiest way to do it is to establish more rules, would be to establish Robert's Rules of Order for the small boards, which allows us to do not only the ties, but a lot of other things, gives the structure so that we're not like the wild, wild west. But I would like to have a discussion around that. So if you can email out some of those Robert's Rules of small boards and any other ideas, then maybe at the next meeting we could discuss that. The other thing I'd like to do is one of the things I noticed here is we had discussion about how if I'm somebody who is wanting to appeal my property taxes, that at the meeting they say there will be a future meeting, kind of keep an eye out. I would almost like, instead of us coming up with, hey, the next meeting will be, and she has to chase us after for like setting that meeting, if there's a way that we can set the meetings ahead of time enough to where the people who wish to, you know what I mean, make their objections known, they would know when that date is so they could put it on their calendar. If we're going to move towards a more, you know what I mean, working with some of these property owners on some of their issues, then that might be help that out. So I don't know the process of, we usually have these meetings, we set them about 30 days to 21 days roughly ahead of time. If there's a way, maybe at the next meeting, we could discuss if that's even possible, to allow the people who are making the requests to know when that date would be, so that we could have that process. Or maybe like a year calendar of these are the dates, because we do that already for county commission meetings, we do that already for school board meetings, not something we couldn't do for VAB.
So, if I may, I don't know if it's to me, but one, so the board has authority to adopt local procedures, which aren't, as long as they're not inconsistent with a rule or statute.
Sure.
So one thing that other VABs have done for sort of that scenario in general is, as far as the meetings, they might have two meetings. So on one meeting might be a meeting to hear this sort of thing, and then they'd already have a second meeting set up to finalize everything.
Okay.
Before that, though, there's no way for petitioners or the property appraiser to know what to do at that first meeting. In other words, who's going to show up other than someone just kind of randomly showing up.
Sure.
So what other boards have done is put in place procedures for reconsiderations, which is essentially what's happened here. I have written procedures that have been approved by at least a half dozen other boards and DOR sort of incidentally through complaints against it, but it's all been approved by DOR. So I'm happy to bring those to the board, either at the
okay
organizational
with me,
meeting
yeah.
next year or at the next meeting, whatever the board would like. And that way, there's a procedure both in terms of timing, procedure, and substance for these sort of requests. And then the board can take those up specifically, if there are any, at one meeting. And if anything changes, there will already be a second meeting to deal with those changes.
Yeah, it makes
So that's-
sense.
that puts in place a global process.
Yeah, that would be good. I would say if we could get those and
Yes.
at the next meeting, maybe have a discussion wrapped around them. And I know that we're coming back pretty quick, but it shouldn't be hard to get the Robert's Rules of Small Orders and anything you've already got, so we can just kind of look at it. And we don't have to make a decision then. I just wanted to kind of get that ball running. That's all. That's all I got for my board reports, besides that I'm really
I think it
excited
would be
to work with you
interesting to
guys.
see what other boards are doing.
Yeah.
I'm sure each county has its own personality. And how many other counties do you do?
9.
9. That's great. So, Robert Springer.
I have nothing, sir.
Okay. Rob Adams not here. A couple things. One, I want to thank the staff, both with the property appraiser and our general counsel and our clerk of the board, as well as the staff that's helped prepare the agenda here. I had a couple things that I wanted to bring up. I listened to the agenda is amazing. The work that's been done, that's prepared by the staff of the clerk of the court, and really appreciate it. It's beyond what we've had in the past. But there's a couple of changes I'd love to look into. There's one, listening to the recorded sessions, presentations. Maybe I was doing it wrong, maybe it was my system, but when you listen to the recording, there was no ability to pause the recording and to rewind them. And once you listen to it and you close out that file, you had to start all the way from the beginning. I was amazed how much time and effort went into this case. It's like, wow. But definitely, they're hearing out, the mattresses are really listening to the property owners. But it was hard to go back, and I'd like to look at how we can improve that technology. Now, that might be a fiscal thing. Maybe it's something the county needs to work with the clerk to help out. But I would like to look at it so we can make it a little more user-friendly, not critical. I mean, beyond, they've done so much, but maybe we need to help out and make it a little easier to track that and listen to that, because it is invaluable to go back and listen to the audio the sound was excellent. It was very understandable. It was well done. Just wanted to look at that interface. I know that this year, too, is a unique year, and what we do is very important. The central core biggest issue before the legislature this session is property taxes and property tax reform. The governor wants to do away with property taxes. I don't know if the Senate would agree with that, but it's going to be an interesting debate to watch. But I know the House did appoint a special select committee for property tax reform. So there will be a lot of discussion about property tax, either doing away with them or reforming them. So there may be an opportunity. We should monitor that, and we'll have our lobbyists monitor it with the county. Imagine the school board would do the same because it affects them. There may be some input. I don't know if they'll be opening up the VAB process, but if there's any improvements that we see or changes that should be done, and I'll reach out to the property appraiser as well to see if some feedback they would have there. But this is, I foresee us tracking that, and I don't think there's anything that would preclude us meeting mid-fiscal year if we wanted to have a discussion about some of the changes or proposals or like thereof.
Nothing wrong with that.
Okay, great. And that's my report.
It's a good report. You got anything?
I'm good.
And I don't have any additional report.
Okay, well, I think we're done. Show the meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.